and what is up, gang? Thank you for checking out Sledgehammer TV today. 2020 has begun, and it is bringing us not only a whole new year of professional wrestling, but ushering in a whole new decade in which the wrestling industry has changed tremendously. The last 10 years has seen so much change that we are going to continue to highlight some of those individuals that have been instrumental in bringing forth that change, changing the industry as we knew it in 2010 to where we begin at 2020, shifting the industry in a whole new direction. And today's installment of this series is going to feature a man that, when all is said and done, may prove to be not just one of the most important wrestlers of the last decade, but may prove to be one of the most important and influential wrestlers in the whole entire history of the business, and we are going to talk about it right here and right now. My name is Nick Nightmare, and you are watching the Sledgehammer Wrestling Show's most important wrestlers of the last decade. Let's do it.
The Sledgehammer Wrestling Show.
From Lionheart to Y2J to Le Champion, Chris Jericho and his career and its impact on the world of professional wrestling are huge, and maybe never bigger than what he was able to accomplish over the course of the last decade. Just in the last few years of the decade, he found himself in 2017 as the WWE United States Champion. 2018, he was the IWGP Intercontinental Champion. And then 2019, he ended the decade at the top of AEW as their inaugural World Heavyweight Champion. Chris Jericho may be the only wrestler in existence to hold the distinction of being an active competitor on the roster and hold championship gold in ECW, WCW, WWE, NJPW, and of course AEW. Throughout the last decade, as he started off in the WWE, we've seen him in prominent rivalries against guys like Edge and CM Punk and Kevin Owens and AJ Styles, just to name a few. Having left and returning to the WWE on multiple occasions and reinventing himself just slightly each time to keep himself relevant. His talent on the mic and ability to connect with fans is superb. This is a man that over the course of the last 10 years has gotten over a light-up jacket, scarves, a piece of pen and paper, and a bottle of champagne. So you go from "you just made the list" all the way to a little bit of the bubbly. Chris Jericho is undeniably a catchphrase machine and a marketing genius. He even turned the fact that he lost the AEW Championship belt into a whole angle that ended up being more entertaining than making him look foolish. Everybody he comes in contact with or works with in the world of professional wrestling is made all the better for it. Think about his pairing with AJ Styles and the Y2AJ teaming, which led to a great Wrestlemania match between the two. And then, of course, there's always his pairing with Kevin Owens, which led to the Festival of Friendship, which was unforgettable. And this, however, would also serve as one of the reasons why Chris Jericho would end up parting ways with the WWE. It is widely considered that Jericho and Owens were going to go to WrestleMania and end up feuding for the Universal Championship. But the WWE had other plans, gave the Universal title to Bill Goldberg instead, and they just ended up fighting over the United States Championship at that WrestleMania instead, which would be Chris Jericho's last WrestleMania appearance. But towards the end of the decade, he was running around claiming to be a free agent, which was something unprecedented, and he kind of jumped back and forth between the WWE and New Japan, which is something I had never really seen happen before. He appeared on an episode of SmackDown in July of 2017, and then would follow it up just a few months later in November, challenging Kenny Omega to a match at Wrestle Kingdom. He wrestled at Wrestle Kingdom on January 4th and then appeared on the Raw 25th Anniversary show at the end of the month that very same January. And he was wearing his Alpha Club merchandise. This kind of stuff was unprecedented and just shows you how Chris Jericho calls his own shots. And his importance to pro wrestling almost supersedes any sort of alliance or allegiance he would have to any particular brand, as Chris Jericho's primary focus and primary brand is truly himself over everything else, until we would get to this AEW scenario that he currently finds himself in. As we mentioned, Chris Jericho would win the IWGP Intercontinental title from Naito, which was historic in and of itself. He would go on to sign with AEW, shaking hands with guys like Tony Khan, and he became the company's inaugural champion, immediately establishing AEW as a viable contender to the WWE's throne. And you know, I may be harsh on Chris Jericho at times on this channel for being the older guy taking the main event spot away from some of the younger, fresher talent. But there is no way to ignore what he has done and continues to do for wrestling. He makes everybody else better, and he continues to do so even on the roster of AEW. He's gotten over guys like Sammy Guevara already. His creation of the Inner Circle is going to end up elevating all of the guys that are involved in it, just because Chris Jericho is a part of it. Anybody he ends up being an opponent of is also going to be risen to a whole nother level. Regardless of how you feel about how he is in ring, just his name value alone and just him being a part of AEW, it makes it the real deal. You have a whole lot of other talent now that are at his fingertips in order for him to mold and really make a push to possibly maybe even be number one day. Chris Jericho makes that a possibility. He has put AEW on his back, and he's determined to see it succeed. A whole new generation of young and hungry talent for him to work with and teach, and they just might actually succeed at becoming the number one wrestling company in the world. It will be largely due to the involvement of Chris Jericho, which is one of the many reasons why he ends up making it on this list. Can you find any other reasons why he should be maybe thought about as the single most important wrestler in the world today? From where he's gone and everything he's done in the WWE to now all of his success in New Japan, following it up with being the leader of the competition who wants nothing more than to give the world of wrestling an option so that we're not stuck in just watching what the WWE has to offer. This guy, who has been such a loyal member of the WWE, started to see it for what it was. He got the shaft from Vince McMahon because of their whole, Bill Goldberg, Brock Lesnar obsession. And he's like, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. He established the Rock and Rager Wrestling Cruise, which is a one-of-a-kind thing that I don't think anybody's ever done before. And his alliance with AEW, it just means so much. It means so much. He brings a level of media attention and just a level of legitimacy that nobody else on that roster really brings to AEW. And that's not a slight on the roster, it's just a simple fact. The man is a legend. He was a certified WWE surefire first ballot Hall of Famer. Not that that really matters to anybody anymore, but that he sacrificed all of that, probably because of how meaningless it's truly become, but he's willing to put his name on this brand and to try to bring us back to the days where we had a WCW to fall back on, or even possibly take control and be the best in the world. That's all Chris Jericho ever wants to do. He wants to be the best, and maybe it's not the best for him to always be the champion, but if you look at it, there was almost no other way they could go about this. It just brought AEW to a whole nother level. It makes everything feel a lot more realistic as far as competition goes. If they didn't have Chris Jericho and some of the other WWE names on board, would you really truly feel like AEW was a number two or was a secondary option? But just them signing Jericho alone immediately made it more impactful when a guy like Moxley signs on, and a guy like the Perfect 10 signs on. Not that he's going to have that much of a huge career because of Chris Jericho, but he was able to go somewhere else because Chris Jericho helped Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks make this look like an attractive place to be. And time will only tell. We could be turning around 10 years from now and looking at Chris Jericho and saying, man, the world of professional wrestling really owes him a debt of gratitude because he's made he's helped make a new company. Sure, he's not solely responsible for it. I may be overselling it a bit, but what you can't oversell is just exactly how important Chris Jericho is to wrestling. He makes everything better. He makes promotions better. He makes the people he works with better. He can take a pen and paper and make you care about it more than you care about half of the wrestlers on the active roster today. A little bit of the bubblies, one of the biggest things that took over the world in 2019. This is all due to Chris Jericho's unending charisma and his knowledge of professional wrestling, which as we move forward, you can see is bigger and maybe better than we ever thought. A great secondary option. Actually, for most of you guys, it's the first option because WWE is absolutely trash. So now imagine without Chris Jericho, maybe you don't have an AEW to go to. And that's almost a fact. That's almost a fact. And that is why Chris Jericho is undoubtedly one of the most important wrestlers of the last decade. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to our continued list of the most important wrestlers of the decade. We got a couple of more in store for you, and we're going to keep pumping them out as the new decade is just underway. We are going to focus on what made everything so important over the last 10 years and maybe focus and see where we are going to go in the future. The next episode on this list is going to feature one of the wildest characters in all of professional wrestling over the last decade, and you're going to have to tune in to find out who it is. The best way to not miss that is to make sure you are subscribed to this channel. So if you enjoyed today's show, make sure you hit that thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, make sure your notifications are on so that you don't miss anything that's happening on this channel, especially our weekly wrestling reviews, which are second to none on this YouTube platform. And as we said, the continued looking back and making this list at the most important wrestlers of the last decade who changed this industry all for the better and brought us where we are at today. My name is Nick Nightmare. This is the team, Thor the Sledgehammer, the official Sledgehammer of the Sledgehammer Wrestling Show, his tag team partner, the World Heavyweight Champion of all the microphones in all the world, Mr. Blue the Snowball. The most important member of the team, as always, is each and every one of you. That, my friends, is going to do it, and we are out of here. We will see you next time right here on your new favorite wrestling show, the Sledgehammer Wrestling Show, only on Sledgehammer TV, right here on YouTube.com. Boom.